At Main Street Moxie, we're constantly being inspired by people who are mavericks in their own way. Our guests do the work and take leaps of faith in some part of their lives, whether it's professional or personal. They believe in themselves, perhaps in the face of self-doubt or the odds being against them, and as a result, made something new. They had creativity, vision, and the necessary belief to pave a new way. They had Moxie.
You may think you don't have Moxie. We think you do. It's not inborn, it's a mindset and a process. One that you can learn and incrementally put to use in your own life. We want to help you find your Moxie through conversations with people who have their own Moxie stories to share.
We'll be your Moxie mavens and ask our guests the questions so you can learn from them and find parallels in your own life. We'll also let historians and writers talk about people from the past who exhibited Moxie in times gone by. We call that Moxie by proxy.
We'll be asking lots of questions, exploring Moxie themes such as, what is Moxie? How can you make choices and create the circumstances to flex your own Moxie muscle?
How can you recalibrate your Moxie meter and move out of old comfort zones? How can you create a Moxie mindset? What micro Moxie choices can you make to move you incrementally in a different direction?
What habits do you need to cultivate and what limiting beliefs do you need to leave behind? How can you see failure as success waiting to happen?
Find your Moxie with us. I'm Thorunn Kristjansdottir.
And I'm Mary O'Neill.
So Mary, one thing that we should probably clarify for our listeners, I was about to say readers, because we put the magazine out so much and everyone reads our stuff, but now they're listening, which is a new forum for us. What the hell makes us an authority to talk about Moxie? Who are you? Who am I?
I know. I feel like I'm qualified, though. Don't you? For yourself?
When you asked me the other day, well, what makes you some president of Moxie? I was like, well, I hadn't really thought about it, so I asked you to define me. I defined you a little bit, but, why don't we tell our listeners a little bit why we think that we can talk to this subject?
Okay, you first.
All right. Well, the obvious is, obviously, I started a business. I guess that takes a little Moxie, but, after...
Just a bit.
A little bit. But at this point, we've already done a couple of interviews, and which has been really fun in learning about other people's Moxie and how they define it. So I guess, to define your own Moxie, and I hope our listeners do the same thing when they're listening to this podcast, that they get something from it, that, we as well as our guests think of Moxie very differently. So it's not necessarily some brash and loud, concept of how people behave or how they approach life. So for me, especially after talking with our last three guests, I think it also has to do with a familial thing. So thinking back the other day, I was actually thinking of this after you and I talked about what defines our Moxie. And I thought to my uncle, who does not really give out compliments. He's a very cut and dry kind of guy, to the point. And he said to me many years ago, he's like, oh, you got that stuff from our grandpa, meaning his grandpa, my great-grandpa, and his family. And I kind of was like, wait, is he insulting me or is he giving me a compliment here? And it was actually a huge compliment, because he said to me, which I guess defines my Moxie, in that I wasn't afraid to take a chance on myself and do something. And, I can list off the many things that I've done in my life that I just don't think of it that way, because I'm just doing. So I have an idea and I go for it. So regardless of an obstacle or hesitation or doubt that I myself or someone else gives me, I'm going to achieve my goal. And it could be a small goal or it could be a large. So for me, it's part of who I am, plus how I grew up and my forefathers who came before me. Does that make me some authority? Maybe on some subjects, but I hope that our listeners, define their own Moxie as well as, see some of ours.
Well, I think one thing we both share is a curiosity about other people's stories.
Always
because
curious.
Of Main Street Magazine and the stories I write and the stories that you put out as the editor and publisher and founder. And for my version of Moxie, I don't know if I had that Moxie modeling when I was growing up. It was more of make safe choices. Okay. And I feel like I've come to my Moxie much later in life. Probably when I got back into the workforce after staying home with my kids for 10 years. And
that takes courage.
It did take courage. It took a lot of courage for me to not listen to the voices that kept telling me I was out of the game and what did I have to offer. My skills weren't current. And over the past 10 years, I have reinvented myself more times than Madonna and Lady Gaga combined.
Whoa.
But I haven't worn a meat dress yet. But I've done a lot of different roles, and I've thought a lot about how to tell my story in ways that bridge from one role to the next. And while I consider you a serial entrepreneur, I consider myself an intrapreneur.
Oh, okay.
In that I like to work for organizations and take an entrepreneurial spirit into that organization. And I feel like that's something that I've been able to do and enjoy. Yeah, so I feel like I'm open to hearing about how other people do the things they do and trying to move my Moxie needle a little bit through learning from them. And that's one of the goals of this podcast, is not just tell the stories, but help people find their own brand of Moxie, even if it's just in one part of their life.
For sure. I mean, as we explained in our introduction in this very first episode here that we're doing right now, I think also what you said is that, you and I come at Moxie, if we can say that, from very different perspectives. But I think that also goes to showcase who are some of our guests might be in their approach to, as well as all of our listeners. I mean, no person is the same. And so their definition or their approach or their work ethic or whatever it may be can be so different. But I just hope that everyone who listens to this will take something away, whether it be, just laughing at a story from one of our guests, or taking a major life lesson from one of our guests as well, or seeing how, or not seeing, but listening to how they explain their methodology or approach or just mindset to something, how that could be, make you go, that's different, or I can incorporate that.
Yeah, those aha moments are critical in our own lives, because we are always growing and changing and evolving, and we can all create Moxie. It's never too late.
Never too late. So let's see, what our guests think. Well, let's see what our listeners think. And we're always, reachable via email or leave some comments in our social media section. And we are excited. Find your Moxie with us. I'm Thorunn Kristjansdottir.
And I'm Mary O'Neill.
Go to Main Street Moxie at www.mainstreetmoxie.press to find out more, and subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts.